Wayne Dyer's core message is this: your thoughts shape your reality. He challenges us to imagine life without the limiting beliefs we hold. What if you couldn't think, I am sick, or I can't? By refusing to entertain the thoughts of illness, failure, or lack, you begin to transform your life. Dyer shows us that true manifestation starts within. When you realize you're connected to something greater, obstacles become illusions, and your potential becomes limitless. Take control of your mind, and everything else will follow. Special thanks to our partners at Hay House for allowing us to release this special presentation exclusively here on our YouTube channel. To learn more about them, check out the first link in the description below. Enjoy the video and believe.
Dr. Dyer, before we get to calls, though, I just wanted to share a quick email from one of our listeners that I just thought was really great. She was listening to the show Curriculum of Your Life, and there was a woman talking about her chronic health problems. And your question was, what if we didn't have the ability to think the thought, I am sick, how would we then feel? And this question made her think about her son. He was born very premature 25 years ago, and he has some physical and mental challenges. Although he has limited ability to communicate verbally, he can get his basic wants and needs across. And she says she's always marveled at the fact that when he would have anything from the flu to surgeries, he would just happily rest and sleep until he felt better and always recovered quicker than a typical person would. And there was never a complaint. Doctors are not yet sure, she says, what is specifically wrong with him, but he always responds to just rest, and he enjoys music, and that's kind of how he heals himself, and never has the thought, I am sick. He never acknowledges it or really accepts it. He just kind of goes along and then seems to kind of bring himself back into good health. And she says, I realized Dr. Dyer helped me with that one question. To see the way my son handles himself is a beautiful example of the gracefulness of a pure soul. Instead of the sad feeling that he doesn't understand what's going on, he absolutely does understand, and so does Dr. Dyer. So she just wanted to say thank you for your contributions to Hay House and for having her think the thought that he is well. So I just thought that was sweet.
That's a wonderful letter, and the concept is really. It's basically the concept behind a book I did a couple of years ago called "The Excuses Be Gone."
Yes.
Which is what I have a paradigm in there, and one of the questions in the paradigm is, what if you couldn't think the thoughts that you have that tell you that you can't do this, or this is impossible, or that you have to be poor, or that you can't get that job, or that you're infirm, or that you're weak, or that you're sick, and so on. What if you just couldn't think that thought? And it's interesting. I've talked before about this, the cleanse that I was on, and I just did another 3 days with my daughter Summer, who's here.
Yes, the Master Cleanse.
Yeah, the Master Cleanse. I just went back on it for 3 days just to sort of support her with it. She had taken up smoking at one time, and she's getting rid of all of that and really getting herself very, very healthy. And I was noticing wherever I go for a walk or anything, I see people walking by a restaurant, and they take a great big cheeseburger with bacon on it or something. They go to take a bite of it, and this isn't something that I've put in my body probably in 20 years. But when you're going through a cleansing process, the whole process becomes mental. And what it makes me realize is that virtually everything in our life is mental. What kinds of thoughts do we think? And I'm watching people put this great big greasy thing into their mouth and taking a bite of it and drinking a great big soda, and they're 50, 60, 70 pounds overweight and so on. And I'm thinking, oh man, that looks so good. And I'm thinking, what kind of a mental thing is that? And I begin to realize that it's like we become what we think about. And, most of the difficulties that we have, I think about people out there who are overweight. And I think, what if you couldn't look in a mirror? And what if you couldn't step on a scale? And what if you couldn't think the thought, that I'm overweight, that I'm fat, that I'm unattractive, that I'm lazy, that whatever it is, all the things that are associated with that. And so I think what she was saying there is very, very relevant, is like, begin to look at and say to yourself, well, what if I couldn't think these thoughts, that I can't make things happen, that I can't manifest things? And the only thought that you could think of, with God, all things are possible, and I am connected to God. I am a piece of God. What if that was the only thing that you could think? And then begin to challenge yourself and just say, okay, then I'm going to not give myself permission or the right to think thoughts that don't work for me. Like she was talking about her son. It's like, what if he just absolutely could only think, I am well, I am content, I am happy. And that's why, so many people, when they go to when they go to the hospitals, they go to doctors and so on, and they have all of these tests that are run, and then they look at all of the numbers, and they look at all of the things, and they start to think about all of the things that are going to go wrong with their body. And I tell them, what if you couldn't think those thoughts? What if you could only think that I'm healthy, I am content, I am peaceful, I am strong, I am God, I am connected to God, all things are possible. And if that was, you had been conditioned to only think that way from the time that you were just a child, your whole physical world would change.
Right.
And that really leads me into a little bit about what all of the controversy and all of the discussion about the Supreme Court decision of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, siding with, quote, the liberal wing of the Supreme Court and upholding the individual mandate and the health care law that there's been so much fighting over and so on. And I think about, what is all of this controversy about? What is everybody all upset about? What is it that government's going to come in and do this and do that? I'm 72 years old, so I've been on a program that is called Medicare for 7 years now. And I go to whatever doctor I want to go to if I want to go. Nobody comes in and tells me anything that I can do or that I can't do. It's a very simple system, and it's something that we put into place that every civilized country in the world has for every single one of their citizens. Well, we finally have it just for people, over the age of 65 or so on, and also for people who are, incapacitated. And it's never been a problem, and everybody supports it. And all of the people in the Republican Party who are opposed to this health care, certainly don't want to get rid of Medicare and so on. And then I think about all of the people up there arguing that we're going to repeal this and we're going to repeal. Here's the Speaker of the House, John Boehner, is up there saying we have to throw this whole law out and it's socialized medicine. And meantime, he has voted for himself a wonderful package of government subsidized and taken care of health care for himself. And every single person in that Congress has a form of what they call, quote, socialized medicine, which somehow there's something terribly wrong with that word. And all of these people who are voting on whether or not the rest of the country can just be free from the worry. The thing that concerns me the most about this, Diane, is the element of cruelty that is inherent in this argument that we have to, let's toss this all out and let's all start over again, which really means let's get rid of it, let's never have it again, and let's just say, we got a wonderful healthcare system in this country, except for the 50 or 60 million people who don't have healthcare, who when they find out that they have a brain tumor, or when they have an accident, or when they get some kind of serious debilitating disease where they need continuous coverage, they don't have insurance, they can't get insurance, the hospitals won't take them, and they just basically die and live in this system where they're just so worried and so filled with fear. It just seems to me like an absence of compassion. And I was so impressed with the Supreme Court Justice, with Justice Roberts coming along and saying this is a signature thing that has happened in this, under President Obama. I think it has the same kind of magnitude as when the Social Security became something, when the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, the Medicare Act, all of these things that are just something that is accepted as, if you're born in the United States of America, one of the greatest countries in the world, supposedly, you should at least be able to live, every citizen ought to be able to live free from the worry that they, that they can't get the kind of medical attention that they want. And this is the direction that we're moving. And I was watching on Bill Maher show on Friday night. There was a woman on there who was saying, this is only really the very beginning, that we are in an untenable situation. We're in a place where healthcare costs are just going through the roof. They were using the example of somebody on the panel had gone into a hospital, and they got their bill, and they got a bill for, those little packets of Kleenex that they give you when you're in the hospital?
Right, like $20 a piece for
$28.
that.
$28 they were billed for a little packet of Kleenex. And Bill Maher was saying, where does this go? You can go over to any drugstore and get that for 49 cents. Where does the $27.50 go? It's the whole thing is just so out of control that bringing it back and having the same thing that we're offering for all of our citizens in this country, which is health care for everybody over the age of 65, Why not offer it for everybody? Why not just figure out a way, whatever it takes to make this happen, let's just get together and do it. And when the congressmen get together and say, we can't do this, when the Republicans particularly say, we're going to throw this thing all out, then say, then if you're so opposed to socialized medicine, then stop taking it yourself. You voted for it for yourself. You gave yourself the best medical care that anyone could ever have, and you voted for it for life, for you, for your family. Even if you just served 2 years in Congress, you get lifetime medical insurance and everything taken care of, paid for in this, quote, socialized means, by the government. So anyway.
Why shouldn't the rest of us be offered the same ability to do that? And I've been without insurance before in various jobs and had to try to pray nothing happened. And it really is it's a horrible feeling, when you have to go to the drugstore and you have to pay the full price for your prescriptions. You can't get any break. And,
or something happens to you, like my friend Terry Gordon, who's got a book coming out with Hay House this is July, now this month, called No Storm Lasts Forever. He's a cardiologist, a brilliant man, a very good friend of mine. It's a wonderful book. I really recommend it. When the book comes out, I want to put Terry on the show. But his son was, just got into a terrible automobile accident and was rendered a quadriplegic, and he's going to need medical care for the rest of his life. What do we do with people like this? Do we just say, we'll just let them die, or just, we're not going to give them the care that they need? The ability to offer insurance and a worry-free life when it comes to medical expenses and so on is something that ought to just come with being a citizen of the country, whatever it takes to make it all happen. And I just think that they've done such a masterful job of convincing a whole lot of people that there's something terrible going on here and that the government's going to come in and that there's going to be death panels and all of this stuff like the Sarah Palins and so on. All of that, we ought to just dismiss all of that and say, look, let's offer complete medical care to everyone in our country and get these medical costs down. The people in Washington are the ones who are going to have to make this happen. And if they say we don't know how to do it, we can't afford it, we say, well, then you managed to figure out a way to do it for yourselves. Now go into another room and don't come out until you figure out a way to manage it for everyone else. By the way, for the people who are paying for your insurance.
Exactly. They need to send you up there. Dr. Dyer goes to Washington.
If I went to Washington, I would just say
great.
to all of them, all right, this is the room. You're all going in there, and you figured out whatever it is that you did in there to figure out how to give yourselves complete medical care for life and your families. You don't come out of that room until you figured out how to make this happen for everybody else, particularly because those are the people who are paying the bills for the health insurance that you've given yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. I agree. Very interesting.
Anyway.
It was definitely the topic all weekend. I was at a party. Everybody was talking about it. So people are very passionately discussing this whole thing. Brings up a lot of feelings in a lot of people.
There's so many, there's so much mythology around all of this. There's so many rumors about it and all of that. And basically it just gets down to a political gambit. That's what it really is. One party doesn't want the other party to be in power, so they're doing everything that they can. And nobody could, people, as I say, I've heard it said over and over again that the main focus of the Republican Party now in Washington is to make sure that the president does not get reelected. That ought not to be the main focus of the people who have been elected to Congress. The main focus ought to be how can we govern and provide the services for our people, not how can we just stop somebody from becoming president.
It's very frustrating.
They just cited the U.S. Attorney General Holder for contempt of Congress over this gun thing down in Mexico. And I said, I think the whole country's in contempt of Congress. I'm certainly one of them that is. That's
true.
My rant for today.
That's Dr. Dyer's soapbox.
Right.
Very good. Well, we've got some time to grab calls here. And
sure.
Did you want to start in Toronto, where you just were?
I was just there. Let's see who's there.
Let's go there. Catherine on line 1, and we will start with her. And Catherine, welcome to the show. You're on with Dr. Dyer.
Hello, Diane. Hello,
Hi.
Dr. Dyer. How are you?
Hi, Catherine.
Speaking to you today is a wish fulfilled, so thank you.
Good.
I really appreciate it.
Were you in the audience? Were you in the audience last week?
I was. I found it very humorous and very moving, so thank you for that.
Oh, good. You got a few laughs?
Yes.
You saw my brother up there. What'd you think of that?
I got a chance to shake his hand. And
Did you?
I just wanted to tell him how perfect and enough it was. in terms of what he spoke, because he almost started to go to an apologetic place. And I just wanted him to know that it was very moving.
Yeah, let me just say 1 minute here before we get into Catherine, your call, is that my brother David has just written a book called From Darkness to Light. And he tells the story. I mean, he was an alcoholic for over 50 years. He was very, very reserved and shy. He won the Bronze Star for bravery in Vietnam and 2 tours of duty there. He was basically an atheist and a very withdrawn person. And he got Parkinson's disease when he was 68 years old. That was like 4 years ago. And everything in his life changed. The Parkinson's disease, what you would think of as this is supposedly a diagnosis of an incurable disease, and it's just going to get progressively worse and so on. And it turned everything around in his life. He found God. He stopped drinking. He stopped smoking. He started writing. He's now written a book and telling a bit about his story and the relationship that he's had with me. And I had him on stage there in Toronto, and it was really, really a very, very beautiful moment. And he's just been flying. He's been in the clouds. He can't even believe people. He said people were coming up to me, and they just wanted me to hug them. They told me that I was inspiration. He said, I can't even believe that. I mean, his whole life changed, and it's like so many of the things that come into our life that we think are terrible, and what an awful thing to have Parkinson's disease at the age of 68. It was largely from him being in Vietnam and being exposed to Agent Orange. And it turns out that this storm, this horrible thing that supposedly happened to him in his life, was one of the greatest gifts that he was ever given. He found God. He found a way to get over his addictions. He started writing, and he's the happiest guy in the world these days. So, and I had him up there on stage. So
that's great.
The book is wonderful. Yeah.
And he's a sweetheart.
He is. He's a sweet man. Yeah.
And so, Catherine, what was your question?
Yeah, you mentioned during your talk that, we must be what we can be. And you said obese people are not what they can be, that they don't treat their body with reverence. And then, of course, Sky went on to talk about the greatest gift is to love yourself. And
right.
I'm a weight loss coach, and what I do is not about nutrition or fitness. It's about teaching conscious weight loss, which is like the intellectual, the emotional, the spiritual clarity that we bring to these things. And it's grounded in unconditional love. So my question for you, the cleansing and the weight loss that you experienced recently, you talked about a greater clarity that brought to you, and I'm assuming that that's serving your writing now in a big way. How would you articulate this greater clarity for others who just don't know what they're missing? And then the second part of my question is, what's your thought on spiritual leaders who are overweight or obese?
Well, there's such a conflict in this because, and out of one side of my mouth, I say that you are not your body. And so therefore what you are is formless. I tell people often, the life inside of you is really God. That your body is, if you weigh your body when you're alive and then instantly you die and life leaves your body and you weigh it, it weighs the same. So that your life, that whatever it is that leaves it, is weightless. It's formless. But we all emerge on the other side of my mouth. I say that our bodies are our temples. These are the things that house our soul. And if these bodies are being deteriorated or they're being poisoned or they're being overfed or they're being misused in some way, not exercised properly, not fed properly, then you don't have any place else to live. God leaves this physical domain, if you will, and you are incarnated here into a physical body so that when you return to optimum health, when you return to perfect health, the place from which you originated. I mean, yesterday I was out walking and I saw 2 people walking towards me, and they both were about maybe 125 pounds overweight at least. Rolls of fat rolling off of them, hard to walk, could see over breath. Their faces were flushed, red, and so on. And both of them were carrying from Subway a soft drink that must have had 32 ounces in them. It must have been a quart of either Coca-Cola or some kind of sugary drink. And I was just watching and watching them as they were walking, barely, having difficulty walking, but balancing this bag of food with this great big thing of pure sugar that they were pouring into their bodies. And I was thinking, if you only knew, if you could only sense inside of you that there is a place that is craving for you to just drink pure water, for you to rid yourself of this mental training that you have had, that you have to pour this kind of stuff into your body. because we all come from a place of well-being. We come from a place of perfect health. And when you get back to that place of well-being, when you return, as I've quoted T.S. Eliot many times on the show, and said, we shall not cease from exploration, but at the end of all of our exploring will be to return to the place from which we originated and to know it for the first time, to know it. I think he might have been talking about death there, that when we die, we'll return to the place. But I've said in Wishes Fulfilled that I believe that we can experience returning to that place without having to leave our bodies. And when you do return to it, when you begin to exercise yourself regularly, when you begin to watch the kind of food that you place into your body, when you begin to drink more water, when you begin to have healthier thoughts, there's a new clarity because you're now reconnected to your source. You're more aligned with God than you've ever been before. And this is the clarity that I feel. You're absolutely right. I feel it when I'm writing. I feel it in every moment of my life. We got to go, Catherine. We're going to get a break here, I just heard. I want to send you a copy of Experiencing the Miraculous. Have you looked at that?
No, I would love to receive it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's from Assisi and Lourdes and Medjugorje, and I hope I answered your question, and I'm not sure if I did, but it's really just about connecting back to Source and feeling God in everything you do, and that's perfect health. There's no obesity there.
And we'll go right back to calls. We've got some great people lined up here, so let's go to Cheyenne, Wyoming. There's an interesting place on line 10, and let's check in with Roy.
Hello, Dr. Dyer. It's Roy Rogers again.
Hi, Roy. How are you? How's Trigger?
Doing okay. Trying to stay out of the rain and everything. We're getting a little bit of rain right now. We need it over here in this part of the country. You heard about all the wildfires to the south of us.
I have.
All in Colorado, which have been very devastating.
A lot of prayers going out. They have a dear friend. In fact, our friend Nancy Levin, who works, of course, for Hay House and has written her own little book of poetry, is in Boulder. And I was speaking to her, and she was standing outside of her apartment, and she could actually feel the heat of the flames. And I told her just sort of facetiously that I would put an end to that. And that night, they got about 30% rain that night. So I took total credit for that. I don't take credit for the fires, but I take credit for the rain.
Anyway, I heard another caller tell you one time that you'd actually helped bring rain or something to him when it was last year, I think, when I first started listening to your show. I think it was one of the first shows I heard. So
yeah.
Maybe your biography ought to be called The Rainmaker or something like that.
That's interesting because when I was in Bali, I think I've told this story on here, but we were way out in a remote part of the island years ago with my wife and two of my children when they were just little. And we walked into this village, and there was a man laying there on the ground looking up at the sky. And this is right on the equator, practically. And I asked, who is he? What does he do? And they said, he's the rainmaker. He brings rain. And he doesn't pray for rain. He prays rain. Greg Braden wrote about that in one of his books. So, yeah. Anyway, what's on your mind, my friend from Cheyenne?
I told the call screener I wanted to ask a question about how it might feel sometimes when you feel maybe when it comes to being inspired and maybe feeling at a point where you're broken. But you kind of answered that question when you were talking to another person. You kind of just gave me just what you said in your last call about just, what you were saying. And so I think I'd like to change it if I might. And it's something else that's kind of bothering me because it's something that you talk about a lot. And I watch your PBS special. Whenever it's on PBS, it's on a lot. And if I happen to be catching it, I'll just listen to the audio just to bring in the positive vibes. But if, you're talking about Anita Moorjani and death, and you've written about this and how, when people die, it seems like they go to this feeling of absolute love and peace and everything like that. Okay, I guess my question might be, I guess it might just be more of a philosophical one, because I kind of think about this too. I know, because if people talk about how great it feels to be dead, because I've never had any experience like that, if it's so great to be on that other side, why then are we here? Is it a curse then that we're here? Because, we have all these problems we have to deal with. And wouldn't it just be easier if we just could all just be in peaceful and all feeling light and feeling good all the time without having to have this human experience? We could all just be in the netherworld feeling peaceful and there would be no problems at all. And sometimes I kind of wish that too, because it's like, it'd just be easier that way.
Yeah. Well, Roy, I'll tell you, you asked the question that from philosophers from Socrates and Plato to Descartes and, and Jesus and Buddha and everyone else has been addressing, like, what are we doing here? What is our purpose? And why even show up in the first place? One of Anita's, Anita Moorjani, who's the author of Dying to Be Me, had a near-death experience. And I wrote the foreword to that book, and it's truly one of the most remarkable books that I've ever read in my life. I recommend it to everyone, and I pass it out to a lot of people. I bought several hundred copies myself, and I pass it out to anybody who's dealing with this whole issue of cancer and death and near death and so on. And it's I think it's going to be destined to be a classic. But she is being interviewed in London, and she's asked the question, why were you the lucky one? Why were you the one that, because no one who's ever been at that end stage of cancer that she experienced for over 5 years and was just that close to death has ever come back, let alone come back and be cancer free and out there walking around talking about it. And she said, I didn't want to go back into my body. And my sister-in-law, Marilyn, had this experience back in 1971 when she was in a head-on collision, and her body was all broken up and her face was all torn apart. All the bones in her face were broken. She had internal bleeding, and she was on life support for 17 days in ICU and so on. And she said she didn't want to get back into her body as well. She said she was in such a place of that you just described, Roy, of just divine bliss and peacefulness and so on. And why would anyone want to get back into their bodies? And Anita's response was, I always loved it when she said, because people ask her, look, my sister had the same thing you had, or my mother had this, or my wife had that, and they died. Why were you the lucky one? And she said, maybe they were the lucky ones, and I wasn't the lucky one. Maybe I had a dharma. I had something to come in here into this world and to accomplish. And then when I accomplished it, I can't do it as long as I'm not, it's not back in this body. And she felt, my sister-in-law had 3 children that she felt that she had to get back into her body to take care of. Anita felt that she had a very important message. She wanted to talk to people about being love, to being in a state of love. But to the question that you are asking, which is why are we here in the first place? It's just the great mystery, Roy. I mean, it's and just you have to just live in that mystery. I have no idea. I mean, I've read many books about this, and and many of the spiritual masters, especially when they speak about, why did God even create this world? Why not just stay in a place of a non-form bliss? Period. Some of them say that God just got bored, with all of that, and just wanted to create an opportunity to express it in. In a physical form as well as in a spiritual form. I don't know the answer to that. I can't even pretend to know the answer to it, but I do know that we're here. We did incarnate. This is the physical body. These things that I'm looking at trees and the ocean and the grass and the birds and the flowers, in the room that I'm sitting in and so on. And it's real, and yet there's the paradox that it's that it's not real at all, that it's all illusion, that we're all spirit. So if we're going to be here for 100 years or so, the whole thing is just be in a state of grace and peace and love and do the best you can with it. I don't try to make any more out of it than that. What do you think?
As I've gotten older, well, since I've been 39, I've just been feeling, I guess, a little bit older. It's kind of like, anytime I feel a little bit, I get a little ache or pain, or I'm thinking, oh, God, is this the start of something, or like, it's like that one movie, Solitary Man, where they were middle-aged people in their 40s or 50s or something, and they were saying the best news you can get from a doctor is like, we caught it early. And yesterday I was buying something at the store, and this lady asked me if I wanted my senior citizen discount, and I'm only 45. And I'm like, I guess maybe I thought a little bit more about death, because it's like, it's not like I haven't seen it instantly to where like a near-death experience and stuff, and it's like I'm thinking, man, it just seems like it's just a slow, gradual, kind of torturous thing to this point, and I guess that's why it's been kind of bugging me also.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. The best thing to do with that, Roy, is just turn it around and just say to yourself, God is love, and we come from God. God is the source of all things, so that we are love. And that so you just love every aspect. It's like I was telling the story of my brother David, standing up there in front of several thousand people in Toronto, and being able to speak when he couldn't before, and being able to say, I love my Parkinson's disease. I've been diagnosed with leukemia. I love this leukemia. It has done so many wonderful things for me, and it has given me an opportunity to serve so many other people who are so terrified and so frightened and scared and thinking about dying. It has brought me Anita Morjani. It brought her into my life. And this person who has now written a book that I think can bring peace and love to a lot of people. And just let the rest of it take care of itself, because when it's time for, life to leave your body, it will. And it can't, the part of you that is really real, that is authentic, was never born. It never dies. It's infinite. So see yourself as an infinite being, and just see this is just part of the dance. That's all.
Well,
Gotta go, my friend.
Yeah,
thanks, Roy. God bless
you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Let's send you a copy of Experiencing the Miraculous. Leave your address there. It's the wonderful tour that we did to Assisi, Lourdes, and Medjugorje. It's a really beautiful program.
Okay, I'll check with you later in the year.
Thanks, Roy. Say hi to Trigger and Kimosabi.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
That would be funny.
Kimosabi, Nancy? I mean, Nancy.
Nancy.
Diane. I'm just talking about Nancy.
Kimosabi, was that the Lone Ranger? No, that was Tonto.
That's what Tonto always said, Kimosabi.
Oh, right. That's my friend,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Something like that.
You're not old enough to remember the Lone Ranger.
I remember who he is, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Where should we go next? How about let's go to Gina in Dalton, Georgia on line 1. And Gina,
Hello.
Thanks for holding. You're on with Dr. Dyer.
Hello.
Hi, Gina.
Hi, Dr. Dyer. It's such an honor to speak with you. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Oh, you're very welcome. Nice to hear from you, dear.
I have to give you just a little bit of backstory to understand my question more. About 3 years ago, I started going through a bit of a, awakening, or I started to go through an awakening. I've had many life-altering experiences from childhood on up into my 30s. I'm 39 now. And I started to assimilate all those problems that I have, and I don't have the victim mentality as much anymore. And I've been able to make use of, find the good in all those situations. And over the past year, I've been feeling really led to be of service to others because, for many years, friends and close family have been coming to me kind of with their problems anyway. And for the longest time, I had the kind of thought, I have all these problems. Why is that to me? But I guess because it didn't completely take me down, I still had a lot of the victim feelings, Mm-hmm. And anyway, but to get quicker to my question, my husband and I, we've been together for almost 10 years. And he, has had a lot of situations in his past, too, that has created kind of, the victimization in him, too. So in the beginning, we identified with each other on that level. Well, I'm not so much identifying with him in that way anymore. Mm-hmm. And, it's kind of put a lot of space between us since I've been going through all these changes. Mm-hmm. So, I'm kind of wondering what might happen with us in the future. I'm just, we've just been growing further and further apart. And I don't see where I'm wanting my life to go to be any different. And I'm not sure, he's ready for me to keep having that change, if that makes any sense. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous.
No, that's okay, Gina. Now, let me ask you this question. Are you in love with your husband?
I am. I do. I love him very much. Mm-hmm. I love him very much.
And what does that mean to you? What does it mean to love someone very much, to be in love with someone?
I want the best for him.
Mm-hmm.
I want him to be happy. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. That's okay.
But I want to be happy, too.
Right. Does your happiness come from being able to do what you just said, to be able to love him and have him fulfill his own destiny and be all that he can be?
Yes.
Because, love doesn't have to mean that that you see eye to eye on everything and that you're in agreement. I've often said that our soulmates are often the people who push our buttons and teach us how to be compassionate, how to love the things that don't match up to what we would like them to be.
Yes, and I understand that, and I can see how challenging me for all these years has been, a great help to the changes that I've went through. And now, I would really like to be able to help him, with some of his things, but, he's not really interested in what I had to say. So, it's hard to see him struggle with those things, knowing that he doesn't have to.
Yeah, but you know what? It's like all of this sort of happens, Gina. It happens on sort of divine time. I mean, we try to push the river. We try to make. You're moving in a direction. You're probably moving a little bit faster than he is. You're seeing things that he doesn't see. He's probably got different things on his mind altogether. And instead of just allowing that and just staying in a place of this is who he is, this is how he feels, this is what he does. It's not the same as I am. I'm going off in this direction. And allow yourself to go in different directions and still maintain the love. And ultimately, the decision about whether you're going to stay together or not, or whether this will end in a happier marriage, or whether it'll end in a divorce or whatever. That's just the tricks that the mind starts playing on. It's like, I've got to get this all figured out. I have to have my whole life scheduled, and I have to know every detail of what's going to happen. Instead of that, I would just recommend that you just be in a state of grace and joy. And if he's not in the same place that you are at, honor him for where he is. And don't be in that place where, there's something wrong here. We constantly tend to do this in our relationships. We're trying to find a common ground, and this is, that we both agree on everything. The fact is that you probably agree on very little, and love, and love is really just, a willingness to love, love someone regardless of what they think. Robert Frost said it so beautifully. We love the things we love for what they are.
Well, we have two children too. I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old autistic son. And the past 5 years, I used to have a career, and after the economy first officially fell out, I lost my job, and so I became a homemaker because I had a young baby at that point in time, and we started having problems with him early on, and later to find out that he was autistic. So I've tried to make the best use of my time being here and not having the career and everything. So I've tried to appreciate it and make the best use I've had of it, and that's when I began all this.
Yeah.
It's been a wonderful journey.
And you've got a lot on your plate. I mean, you've got a special needs son who requires a lot of your attention. He probably, ultimately, if you could see him, as probably the greatest teacher who ever came into your life.
Absolutely.
And he teaches you about being in the moment and being in a state of grace. And he's a representation of divine love.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, instead of looking at him as someone who is taking up so much of your time and keeping you from being able to work the way you used to and so on, see him as this great gift that came into your life. And it's like, if you look at him that, and then you look at your husband and you say, well, I could look at him as someone who's not on the same path I'm on, and he's going in one direction, and this is going to lead to terrible things. Or you can just say, I just love him for what he is. And I don't have to be with him at every moment, and we don't have to agree on everything or even anything. And I can still be in a state of love, because divine love is really a different kind of love. It's a love that, that never changes, and it's a love that never varies, and it's a love that you have for everything and everyone. And the life inside of you, the life inside of your husband, the life inside of your son and your daughter is really just God. That's all it is. And if you can just stay in that state, just stay in that very peaceful, loving state, and turn the rest of your life and all of the details over to God, over to something greater than yourself, and just be, just be in a state of peace and joy. It's you'd be surprised how quickly it'll all work out for you.
Yes, well, with my son, when we first started having problems with him, and, I found out the whole autistic thing, I struggled with it for a very long time. Of course, didn't want to accept it and all that kind of thing. But then, I started seeing, how much he's taught me and how wonderful he is, just like he is.
Absolutely, yeah. Also, become conscious of what you feed him. Read Pam McDonald's diet, book, The Perfect Gene Diet.
We've already cut back on a lot of different things, the causes.
Yeah, that's very important because we're finding out that a lot of the stuff that we're eating. I mean, if you go out into the world and look, you see that 1 out of 3 of us now are chronically obese. And then you see high increases in the number of autistic children, and you're seeing lots of changes, physical changes taking place in our human species, and a lot of it has to do with watching, the kinds of foods that we place in, the water that we drink, and things like that.
Yes, we've been working on a lot of that.
Yeah, he's a
blessing.
And
I've been trying to work on my own self too, with my, with my weight and stuff. I've always kind of had a weight issue, but in the past 3 years, I've been able to take off 70 pounds, but it's took me 3 years to take it off.
70 pounds? That's a whole Backstreet Boy. That's what I... Well, good for you, my dear. I don't know if you know anything about it. You've heard me talk in the last few weeks on the Master Cleanse.
Yes, I have.
Going through and cleansing your body, getting it back into maximum health. That's what I'm working at right now. I just found out that I called my son, who's 25 years old, and he's a surfer, and he's in great shape, and he's, all these things, and I asked him what he weighs, and it turns out that I've got my weight down to, it's exactly the same as his at the age of 25. So,
awesome.
Yeah, and any of it, because it all, and when I think about your call and your husband and your son and you and the obesity thing and all of that, just come from a place of I am divine love, I am perfect health, I'm a piece of God, and my body I treat it as a temple, my son's body is a temple, my husband's body is a temple, and all I'm going to do is just be in a state of love, and just try that, it works.
I will.
Let me send you. We got to go. I got to get to another call. I want to send you a copy of Experiencing the Miraculous. It's four films in Assisi and Lourdes and Medjugorje. You're going to love this. I promise you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dyer. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, sweetheart. God bless you. It's all perfect, dear. It's all perfect.
Thank you.
Namaste.
And we probably have time for one more. We can grab Ellen in New York, and she's been very patient on line 5. We've got about 2 minutes.
Oh,
so
my goodness.
we can grab Ellen really quick.
Ellen.
Thanks for your patience.
Dr. Dyer. So quickly, I just wanted to ask you then about the forgiveness the forgiveness work and that what you did with your father. And I'm completing my training to be a body-centered psychotherapist. So we work with the body. And so what sometimes I've done all the spiritual work and family can still trigger you, and I find myself acting in ways that surprise me, and forgiveness especially, it can really be held in the body. You can feel these emotions, and I think I just wanted to hear from you about that work. Sometimes it sounds like you just did it effortlessly with your father, and if you could just speak a little bit about that, bringing forgiveness into the body, because it's so important.
Right. I didn't do it effortlessly, but you know what, Ellen? The truth of it is, I don't really believe I did it at all. I'm writing about this right now in this book that's going to be out probably another year or two. It's called I Can See Clearly Now, as I'm going back looking at all of the things that transpired in my life from the time that I was a young boy living in foster homes up until right now, and all the different people and the teachings that have come into my life. And I really think that I was just being guided. And I think we're all being guided. We just don't listen to that guidance. The old line that's like, when the student is ready, the teachers will appear. The teachers are always there. The teaching is always there. It's whether or not we take a hold of it and grab it and use it. And I really think that I was directed to my father's grave in 1974 because I had a dharma. I had something that I came here to do. And I was aware that I had to do this. This wasn't even a choice for me, that I was going to become a teacher of higher consciousness. And so I was directed to do that. Get quiet, listen, be in peace, and you'll be guided to forgive and to love. Gotta go. I'm sorry. Call back next week. I'd love to talk to you more. See if we can get around next week.
To watch another amazing Wayne Dyer video, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
I just got back from California. Went out last week and did the Ellen DeGeneres show. It aired on Friday with Janet Jackson, who I could hardly hear with that tiny little voice.
Oh, you're kidding.